Hello and welcome once again to Let's Start Cooking. I'm Wayne, and today we're going to do a recipe that I can remember as far back as when I was a little kid, always going to your grandparents' house. Grandma always had this ready for you because she knew you were coming, and that's bread pudding. I don't know if too many people are familiar with it today, but consider it a French toast that's been kicked up a little bit and it's been added to a custard. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with our custard, and that's going to begin with just a combination of sugar, eggs, vanilla, a pinch of salt, which is about a 1/16 of a teaspoon, butter, and 2 cups of milk. So we'll get that all ready, and we'll get our pan heated up, and we'll continue on. Just gonna add it right to our pan. And we're just gonna put everything else in, and we're just gonna heat this up just enough to melt the butter. That's all we wanna do. We're not gonna boil this, we're not going to do anything like that. We're just going to heat it up to melt the butter. And we're just going to add our butter right in. And we're just going to whisk this to mix everything up until our butter melts. Once the butter melts, we're going to take this off and let it cool down. Because we're going to add eggs to this, and we don't want to cook our eggs, so we want to make sure this is cooled down enough. And while we're mixing this, waiting for the butter to melt, I'd like to take this time to ask you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It does help us out a lot. It does mean a lot to me. And we're so close to reaching our first goal of 100 subscribers. We need 3. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are watching that are not subscribing. So I would greatly appreciate it if you just hit that button. Now that our butter has melted, we're just going to take this off the heat and we're going to let this cool down. And while this is cooling down, we're going to get our bread ready. So we're just going to take this right off the heat and we're going to set it to the side. And we're just going to get our bread. Now what I'm using a sliced brioche bread. You want a nice hearty bread. You can use white bread, but you want something hearty. This will do, French bread will do. You want something nice and hearty, and this is a little bit sweeter. So all we're going to do is we're just going to take our bread out. And I did let this sit out of the bag for about a day. I wanted it to get a little bit harder, and I wanted to go stale because that makes it a little bit tougher and it makes it a lot easier to slice and it won't fall apart on you. So what we're going to do is we're just going to separate this in about 3 slices, makes it a little bit easier. And we're just going to cut this into about 2-inch cubes. That's all we want to do with this. We're just going to cube it up. You don't have to be fancy. Just going to cube it right like this. Just so they're about uniform. I mean, you're never going to get them perfect. But that's all we want to do. We're just going to cut them up like this. And then once we get these all cubed up, we're going to place these in our dish. And I'm using about a 9x9 pan. You want about 5.5 to 6 cups of bread cubed up. So it's usually about a whole loaf of the brioche bread. I can't tell you how much when it comes to the loaf of white bread because it depends on if you get the family size or the small, but we're just gonna slice this all up. Really easy. I know I always say it a lot, it's a really easy recipe, but this is one of the very easy recipes that you can do. And I know the kids love it. That's all we're gonna do. We're just gonna slice it up like that, cube it up, and we're gonna put this in our 9x9 dish. All we're doing is you don't have to be neat. We're just gonna fill this dish with our bread. Now, depending on your dish, it might not take it all. It's no big deal. But you want to put as much as you can fit in here. Because don't forget, when we add our liquid to this, it's going to go down. Once our custard has cooled down, we got it down to about 100 degrees. We just want to make sure we don't scramble our eggs. We're going to take 2 eggs, and we're going to beat those eggs in a separate dish. Just so we get them nice and mixed up before we actually put them in our custard. We're just going to crack them. We're just going to quickly beat these up. Just so we don't want to just dump them right in. All right, we're just going to take our eggs. And we're just going to whisk these right into our sauce. we just want to make sure we get these really mixed up. Like I said, this is a really, really easy recipe. It's not that hard. I know I always say that, but I try to make the recipes easy because nobody wants to have to sit there and read a book and study for an hour on how to do a recipe. Once we get that all mixed up, we're just going to take our bread and we're just going to gently pour this right on top, right all over. And we're trying to get all the pieces. They're going to soak this up no matter what. And while you're doing this, you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Because we're going to end up putting this in the oven now for about 35 to 40 minutes. This is just going to be like now when you do a cake. You're going to use a toothpick to test the bread. You should be able to see that the bread will start to brown on the edges. But this will cook all down. So now we're going to let this soak up. We're going to get this oven heated up. We're going to put this in the oven for 350 degrees for about 35 minutes. So we'll get this in the oven. It's been about 35, 40 minutes. We've taken it out of the oven. We left this cool for about a good 15, 20 minutes because it is going to be hot. And all we're going to do now is we're just going to take a little bit of cinnamon and we're just going to gently sprinkle it over the top. After we put the cinnamon on, I like to take a little bit of powdered sugar and we just put it right here. We just sprinkle a little bit of powdered sugar all over it. And what really goes good with this, if you want to add even more to it, you can always serve this with ice cream. All right. Now we just scoop this out. And like I said, it's going to be hot, so just be careful. You can smell the cinnamon. This is always good when we used to go over to my grandmother's house. She always made sure she had some of this ready. It's French toast kicked 100 times up. Between the custard, almost like a vanilla pudding, and the brioche bread, I'm sure you will enjoy this. It goes good on a cold day with ice cream. Something really quick and easy you can make for the kids. If you like this video, please subscribe and share with your friends. And we will see you next week. And until then, I hope you have a great day.